Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor frowned and looked at the battlefield. There were numerous will-o'-the-wisps that were messengers of death carrying lanterns. The boats carried the souls that had died in battle toward Yudu. If they didn't let the messenger of death bring Qin Mu away and tried fighting, so many messengers of death would probably turn Supreme Emperor Heaven into a white land. He looked at Qin Mu and muttered to himself irresolutely. I've been to Yudu twice already. The first time I was lured in by Qin Devil King. I was the one who saved you and sent you back to the world of the living, said the elder from behind the lantern. Astonished, Qin Mu looked over. He still couldn't see the man's face, however. The second time, Grandmaster, Fatty Dragon, White Bat Brothers, and I fell into Yudu together, and we survived again. Qin Mu composed himself and walked out of the flying ship. He came to the small boat and turned back to wave at everyone. He said with a warm smile, Yudu isn't as dangerous as you guys imagine it to be. I'm going to talk about the cause and effect of the 48,000 souls being back, and I'll be back once it's done. The dragon Chilean opened his mouth, wishing to speak, but he gave it some thought and suppressed the urge. Cult Master is being foolish. How is Yudu not dangerous? There are strange monsters everywhere, and there is even Saturn Star Sovereign, that terrifying monster. However, my position is now in danger as well. I look bad with Brother Tiger for comparison, so it's best if I don't talk. Otherwise, if Cult Master blows up now, I won't be able to get any more spirit pills again. The Black Tiger God took a step forward and was about to talk, but Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor raised his hand to stop him. He shook his head and said, Does Cult Master want to leave his corporeal body behind? Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly, and he instantly understood what the other was trying to say. Imperial Preceptor wanted him to leave his corporeal body behind. If Qin Mu couldn't return, they could cast Soul Guide to seize his soul back by force. Imperial Preceptor doesn't have to worry. Qin Mu plucked the young dragon from his ear and sent it away before waving at everyone. It's safer for me to bring my corporeal body along. I shall borrow this little dragon once I'm back from Yudu. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was slightly stunned, not understanding his intention. While he wondered about it, the small boat sailed away leisurely and vanished into the darkness. The young dragon flew back onto the ship and ran to Qin Mu to coil around his body. Why didn't Cult Master leave his corporeal body behind? Puzzled, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor kept muttering under his breath. If a few gods executed the spell Soul Guide at the same time, we should be able to summon his soul back from Yudu. Qin Mu stood on the small boat and looked around. He saw boats full of souls in the darkness, all sailing towards the depths of Yudu. Their lanterns were very dim, and from far away, they looked like stars moving through a pure black sky. King Yama had once told Qin Mu to go to Yudu at least once if he got the chance. This was why he had rejected Imperial Preceptor's suggestion. King Yama wasn't clear with his words, but Qin Mu could still detect that his birth in Yudu wasn't simple. Earth-count summon was a rare chance, so he might even discover the secret of his birth. The little boat floated at a very fast speed, but he couldn't feel its movement while sitting inside. He could only see the dim world rushing past him. Qin Mu's heart trembled. He had boarded the boat in Supreme Emperor Heaven, and he could see it disappearing into the distance. While in the boat, he saw numerous other worlds. From magnificent ones, small boats with lanterns came sailing out without end. Looking from far away, the dark sky in those worlds and the faint lamplight brought wild and fanciful thoughts. He couldn't help fantasizing about those worlds, the stories that were unfolding there on a magnificent scale. Maybe they were of melancholy and hidden bitterness, maybe of heroism, or just human emotions. It's actually the fourth time you are in Yudu. At the bow of the boat, the messenger of death hung his lantern and turned around to face Qin Mu. He said in a steady voice, You were born in Yudu, so this is the fourth time. Qin Mu's interest was aroused and he asked, Senior, I have no memory of when I was born, so may I ask if Senior could tell me about it? When you were born, you created quite a commotion and shook all the worlds in Yudu. In the end, most of the big shots came to an agreement to exile you. Qin Mu examined the face of the elder in detail, but he still couldn't see his true appearance. Thus, you were exiled. As for what happened afterward, I don't know, the messenger of death said slowly. Qin Mu was stunned and burst out into laughter. When I was born, I was definitely a small baby, so how could I have caused a huge commotion? And for the big shots of Yudu to exile a baby, isn't it a bit too much? It's already very generous, the messenger of death said steadily. In my eyes, us exiling you after all you've done was already very generous of us. After you were out, those big shots were so happy they celebrated for days. What exactly did I do? Qin Mu was even more puzzled. What could an infant do? The messenger of death didn't answer. The small boat sailed into a world and went through it. After a moment, they came to a small world inside it. Qin Mu raised his head and looked at the sun, moon, and the 5 elements as well as the stars in the sky that were abnormally beautiful. They shone with multicolored lights. There was also a divine bridge in the sky with a primordial spirit in the shape of a god. This is the divine treasure of a strong practitioner of divine bridge realm. Qin Mu was astonished. We have entered the divine treasure of a strong practitioner. The messenger of death took out a notebook and flipped it open. He found a name and said, Hanshin, your lifespan is over. I will fetch you after 3 days, settle what you need to do. The primordial spirit on the bridge looked down with a dim gaze. I understand. Thank you, messenger of death, for giving me 3 days' time. The messenger of death nodded. His small boat sailed out of the small world and returned to Yudu. He continued to head forward. Once a person is born, they make a pact with Earth Count for their souls to go to Yudu after their lifespan runs out. The messenger of death that was going to inform you had planned to enter your life and death divine treasure to tell you about Earth Count's orders, but who would have known that he'd be blocked by the treasure on your body? That's why I had no other choice but to go to the world of the living to find you. The longer this matter is delayed, the worse it will be for you. Feeling even more bewildered, Qin Mu asked with a smile, I'm on 6 directions realm, so my life and death divine treasure hasn't even opened yet, so how could the messenger of death enter it? To you, it may be shut, but to the messengers of death, they are all open. When we enter a person's life and death divine treasure to send information, it's like giving them a dream, the messenger of death said. However, we were blocked by the treasure on your body and couldn't enter your dream. Qin Mu took out his jade pendant and asked, the treasure you keep mentioning, is it this jade pendant? Where did it come from? Does it have some curse? Wear it properly. Don't take it down, the messenger of death admonished him in a hurry. Qin Mu could only hide it back under his clothes. The messenger of death was still wary and took out a yellow joss paper to stick it on Qin Mu's face. He took down the lantern and shone it on the surrounding darkness. Which Dao friend is lying low in the vicinity? Qin Mu poked 2 holes in the yellow joss paper and looked around. Everything was dark, and he couldn't see anything. Suddenly, the light of the lantern fell on a slimy body. It moved quickly, and its scales reflected all kinds of lights which soon vanished. The messenger of death muttered irresolutely for a moment before sneering. He is someone Earth Count wants to meet, so don't try anything, otherwise, you won't be able to pay for your crimes. Soft laughter came from the surroundings of the boat as strange devil eyes lighted up. Those eyes were huge and surrounded the whole boat. Earth Count wants to see him, so we won't obstruct. After all, we also live in Yudu and seek a place under the name of Earth Count. However, we also have masters and have received an order to find him. Voices came from all directions, followed by strange laughter. They were like worms crawling in one's body and speaking as they gnawed on the bone. Sovereign equal to heaven, you general governor of heavenly talismans, an official sovereign of Yudu, so we should be somewhat respectful to you. However, you covered his face to prevent us from seeing his face and learning his identity. So how are we going to answer our master? Remove the yellow talisman and we will let you take him away. The messenger of death sneered, and the eyes suddenly closed and vanished. A boat came sailing over. It had an elder carrying a lantern that lit up the surroundings. In the darkness, numerous slimy bodies slithered away from the light. Qin Mu's gaze flickered, and he saw more and more small boats sailing toward them. They overlapped with their boat, and the messengers of death also did the same. In the blink of an eye, some 60-70 boats and messengers of death overlapped to become one. "Now we won't have to worry about them," he said. "Who were the ones who stopped us?" Qin Mu asked immediately. "Gods and devils planted by the celestial heavens." The messenger of death shook his head. "A bunch of fellows who reap things they did not sow." Qin Mu fell into his thoughts as the small boat continued to sail forward. Finally, he saw Earth count once more. Of course, it wasn't the complete form, just the horns of 9 bends. Layers of worlds formed them. The closer the boat went, the bigger the 2 horns looked, forming incomparably huge lands on them. Countless volcanoes erupted to connect the lands together. The paper boat traveled through one, and Qin Mu saw countless souls moving with difficulty through a world of magma. The boat sailed leisurely, and he didn't know how much later and how many planes of Earth Count's horns they had passed before they came to a stop. There was no heart-palpitating hell in that piece of land, just a cluster of majestic palaces. The small boat descended and stopped in front of them. The palace hall had a name in the language of Yudu, and Qin Mu looked over. He instantly knew the meaning of the words there: manner of benevolent saintly king equal to heaven. The messenger entered the hall and said, "This is my manner. Your body is too small so Earth Count can't meet you directly. Wait for a moment, Earth Count's clone will come and question you." Qin Mu checked the murals in the manor while waiting. They portrayed various myths and legends. Suddenly, magma flowed out from the center of the hall, and the floor became bubbling magma. It swirled, and a pair of twisted horns rose up, followed by the whole body of Earth Count that was over 30 yards tall. The messenger of death bowed and took out a book. "I've brought Qin Fengqing. All the evils he has done is recorded in this book, may Earth Count go through it." Qin Mu hurriedly came closer and saw that the book was terrifyingly thick. He hurriedly said, "I didn't do all of those things in the book. I'm just 18 years old, so how could I have done so many bad things?" The Magma Earth Count took the book and flipped through it to check. Divine lights blazed in his eyes as he said, "The things recorded here are not the things you have done in the world of the living, but in Yudu. Is the jade pendant I made for you still around? I could feel the seal loosening recently." Qin Mu's eyes opened wide in disbelief, and his heart trembled. His jade pendant had actually been crafted by Earth Count? His jade pendant should have belonged to Qin family and he had worn it ever since he was young, so how could it have been crafted by Earth Count? What was the relationship between them? Was it because he had truly done so much evil that Earth Count sealed him with the jade pendant? However, he should have only been a baby, so how could he have committed evil? He didn't have any memory of that. And besides, in eternal peace and supreme Emperor Heaven, who didn't know that Cult Master Qin was a noble, benevolent, and a broad-minded character? So how could he have committed evil before? The seal should have become loose. The Magma Earth Count continued to flip through the book. There was once a few gods and devils who tried to break the seal, but they didn't succeed. However, the seal seems to have gotten loose and almost released you. It's fine, I'll reinforce it later. His browsing speed was extremely fast, and he quickly read through all of the evils Qin Mu had committed. When he came to the last page, he said, "In the ominous land of Supreme Emperor Heaven, son of Qin family Qin Fengqing used Soul Guide to disrupt Yudu, seizing 48,000 souls by force, injuring the messenger of death. Using Soul Guide to bring away the 48,000 souls was indeed my doing, but injuring the messenger of death wasn't. It was 7 kills Star Sovereign Wei Liao who did it, so find him if you want." The Magma Earth Count turned his head to look at Elder Messenger of Death and asked, "Was it 7 kills Star Sovereign Wei Liao who injured the Messenger of Death?" There was 7 kills Star Sovereign Wei Liao's name in Life and Death book, but after he died and his soul scattered 20,000 years ago, it was removed, so he is no longer in Yudu's jurisdiction. The reason why the 48,000 souls escaped though was still mainly because of Qin Fengqing helping 7 kills Star Sovereign retrieve his soul and patch it back together. Because of that, the debt of injuring the Messenger of Death has to be recorded in Qin Fengqing's book. After all, he's still alive and his name is still in the Life and Death book, the elder messenger of death, who was a clone of benevolent saintly king equal to heaven, replied. The Magma Earth Count looked at Qin Mu and said, "Do you accept for this debt to be recorded under your name?" "I don't," Qin Mu said instantly. "Record it under his name," the Magma Earth Count told Elder Messenger of Death. "Settle it in the future." Qin Mu's face instantly turned black. "If you're going to record it under my name, why even bother asking me?" However, when Earth Count said to settle the debt in the future, hope lit up in his heart. His words meant that Earth Count really only wanted to talk to him about the cause and effect of his actions and not seek reparations. The Magma Earth Count closed the thick book and lowered his head to look at the tiny Qin Mu below him. "Why did you disrupt the order of Yudu and summon those souls into the world of the living? Did you remember something? Are there images of Yudu flashing in your mind?" Qin Mu stared blankly for a moment, then shook his head. "When I was sent, exiled out of Yudu, I should have only been 1 or 2 months old, right? How could I have images of Yudu flashing in my mind? As for summoning the souls in the ominous land, I had no choice but to do so." He told them about the reason why he had executed Soul Guide, then stood still, waiting for his punishment quietly. The Magma Earth Count kept staring at him. After a moment, he asked, "Are there really no images flashing in your mind? You don't recall anything?" Qin Mu shook his head. "What could I recall?" he asked with a smile. "If you didn't recall anything, how did you become proficient in Yudu language?" The Magma Earth Count kept staring at him like he could see through him. "In a while," he said in a slower voice, "proficiency in Yudu language allows you to cultivate the paths, skills, and divine arts of Yudu, to open the door to the divine treasures of the Devil Path. Aren't you curious about how you were able to open the divine treasures of the Devil Path? Devils are descendants of the devil gods in Yudu, so they can open up their divine treasures of the Devil Path. Aren't you curious about how you are also able to do so?" Elder Messenger of Death asked from beside him. "I am." Qin Mu looked at him with curiosity. "How was I able to open up the divine treasures of the Devil Path as well as divine treasures of the God Path?" "That's because you are the descendant of Carefree Village and also a life form born in Yudu." Just as Elder Messenger of Death said that, the Magma Earth Count intercepted him. "He doesn't need to know all of that, and we don't need to explain it to him. He was summoned to be questioned, not to worm out facts from us." That Elder Messenger of Death came to realization and said with a smile, "He managed to worm a fact out of me. This brat's expression is simply abominable. He made me fall for his tricks." Qin Mu blushed and said with embarrassment, "My curiosity was piqued by official sovereign, so I just asked that. I wasn't trying to worm facts out from the two of you. I'm just a small child that turned 18. Elder Messenger of Death shook his head. "Really can't see that he's lying." The Magma Earth Count nodded and said, "This is an acquired slyness. He learned it from the living people. It wasn't part of his nature, but training changed that. In that case, how much of what he said is true and how much is fake?" The Magma Earth Count knew Qin Mu inside out, so he said, when he talked about the cause of bringing back the souls to the ominous land, every word was true. After that, he might have seemed to have said a lot, but he didn't say anything at all. Instead, he was trying to ask and worm facts out of us. Elder Messenger of Death thought it over in detail and realized that it was truly so. "My nature isn't like this. I was just taught some bad stuff by the elders in my village, which is why I turned out this way. I really don't have any flashbacks of Yudu." "This sentence is true," the Magma Earth Count said. "The seal is still there, so it should be just the memory regarding language that has awoken. He doesn't recall anything of what he had experienced." With sweat pouring down his forehead, Qin Mu probed, "I have killed some people in the past. Will that make my sins heavier?" "This sentence is fake." "He's fishing for facts," the Magma Earth Count said. "However, what he wants to ask isn't a secret, so you may reply to him. All kinds of evil committed before death will be viewed as equal after death. Yudu is not a place of judgment, but where death belongs. Unless people are guilty of terrible crimes or disrupting the order of Yudu, they won't be eaten by Earth Count." Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief, but Elder Messenger of Death wasn't finished yet. Those who are guilty of terrible crimes are plagued by sin and have to be burned by karma fire, which is incredibly painful. Earth Count eats them to absorb their sins and karma fire. People like you who disrupt the order of Yudu and don't let dead people remain dead are also eaten by Earth Count. Qin Mu became nervous again. Elder Messenger of Death looked at his face, then revealed a satisfied expression. However, Yudu doesn't dabble in the affairs of the living world. You're still alive, so we can't deal with you and need to wait until you die. Official Sovereign, you got tricked by his expression again, said the Magma Earth Count. Stunned, Elder Messenger of Death cried out, his original intention was to ask me if he would be punished right now. It's truly impossible to guard against high. The Magma Earth Count nodded, then his gaze landed on Qin Mu's face once again. He said, "Don't speak first. Let me ask him." Qin Mu stood silent. The Magma Earth Count looked at his obedient expression and pondered over it. He then decided not to say anything and just raised his finger gently. The jade pendant on Qin Mu's neck slowly floated up and came to rest onto his palm. The Magma Earth Count plucked down one of the long horns on his head and stabbed it into the jade pendant. The entire long horn sunk inside and vanished without a trace. Rings of fire spread out from the jade pendant before gradually dispersing. The jade pendant flew up and went back to rest around Qin Mu's neck. He hid it beneath his shirt, keeping it close to himself. The Magma Earth Count waved his hand and said, "I wanted to see the seal of the jade pendant. Since it's been stabilized, send him back. We'll talk about everything after he dies." Elder Messenger of Death hurriedly said, "After he dies, won't he still?" The Magma Earth Count shot him a glance, and Earth Count suddenly remembered being ordered not to talk. He hurriedly kept the rest of the sentence to himself. The body of Magma Earth Count swirled, and his voice came from the magma. "Don't let anyone touch your jade pendant. Official Sovereign, when you send him off, don't talk to him. Earth Count, I want to meet my mother, is that possible?" Qin Mu asked in a hurry. The Magma Earth Count vanished. Qin Mu stood with a blank look on his face. After a moment, he said, "I just want to meet my mother. I've never seen her before. Official Sovereign, do you know how she looks like?" Elder Messenger of Death pondered over it and nodded. Qin Mu looked at him with eyes filled with anticipation. Elder Messenger of Death was truly troubled, and he hesitated for a moment. "Earth Count has ordered me to not speak to you." "Official Sovereign, is my mother still alive?" he asked with excitement. The Messenger of Death hesitated for a moment. Qin Mu's expression really gripped at his heart, so he could only nod at him. "Stop asking things, I'm very troubled. I have already gone against Earth Count's orders by talking to you. Go, it's not yet daytime in Supreme Emperor Heaven. I'll send you back to the world of the living." Qin Mu could only follow him and board the small boat. He was silent on the way. The small boat sailed leisurely. They left the broken plane on Earth Count's horns and went into the darkness. The true body of Earth Count was incomparably huge. Qin Mu didn't know how tall or large it was, but the small boat required a lot of time to leave the 29 Bends Yellow Springs. Elder Messenger of Death kept looking around. From time to time, he would raise the lantern to shine it around them. In a bit, he threw a yellow talisman to Qin Mu and said, "The fellows looking for you will not give up this chance. Stick this yellow talisman on your face, and no gods or devils will be able to see your face. Whatever they glimpse would be fake, just like how I look like now." Qin Mu stuck the yellow talisman onto his face and didn't move. "Why haven't you made any holes yet?" Elder Messenger of Death asked curiously. Dispirited, Qin Mu said resentfully, "Not interested. Little child throwing a tantrum." At that moment, the small boat stopped. Elder Messenger of Death quickly stood up and raised his lantern while saying indifferently, "Are you still not giving up?" "May Official Sovereign give us a way out," a voice said from the darkness, but it was a cacophony of many having fused into one. "We just need his face and identity in the world of the living. We don't want his life now. You guys are meddling too much. Retreat quickly, or if my true body descends, you guys can forget about even being ghosts." Elder Messenger of Death said coldly. On the boat, Qin Mu secretly took out the life and death book he had taken from shaman god Kuei and shone it into the darkness. His body couldn't help shuddering when a name appeared on the page. He, you still gave the game away. The weird voice from the darkness moved away rapidly. Elder Messenger of Death turned his head back, and his gaze landed on the life and death book in Qin Mu's hands. He sighed and said, now you know his true identity, but he also knows your true identity. What you used is the life and death book of the celestial heavens, and there aren't many of them around. He will find you soon. You, take care of yourself. For a moment, Qin Mu was stunned. Only then did he realize what the game had been. Qin Mu's life and death book had been taken from shaman god Kuei, and those who knew that it was in his hands were Xing'an, Pangong Tso, as well as the demon monks of Thunderclap Monastery. Shaman god Kuei should have been the heavenly official or earthly official, a god that managed souls. It was unlikely that he had made it himself, but that it had been gifted to him. There was little doubt that celestial heavens wouldn't have many such treasures, and each one would have an owner. Because of that, Elder Messenger of Death was certain that Qin Mu would be tracked rather quickly. Tracking the whereabouts of Life and Death book was much simpler than tracking Qin Mu. The name that appeared on the Life and Death book just now was Zhu Huang. Qin Mu flipped the yellow talisman up and revealed half of his face. What god is Zhu Huang? He's a god in the Yellow Springs. After he inhales or exhales, floods rise in the worlds and reap the souls there. He is one of the 4 great commanders that the celestial heavens have stationed in Yudu, Elder Messenger of Death said. He's not the only one looking for you though. There are 3 other great commanders, Xian Ming who manages the souls, and Lei who manages fate, and Lu Li who manages the prison. You shouldn't have taken out the life and death book. With it, it won't be hard for them to track you down. Qin Mu grew solemn. After a moment, he frowned and spoke in a troubled voice. If I give the life and death book to Grandmaster or Xing'an, pushing everything on them, I should remain unknown. Elder Messenger of Death looked at him. You're just 18 years old, so you can only sabotage youths of your age. The 2 people you mentioned are not suitable. Besides, after the 4 great commanders reap the soul of whoever you'd chosen to throw at them, they would discover your ruse, so it's not as simple to sabotage others as you think. Bah! Why am I helping you look for crooked ideas? Qin Mu released the yellow talisman, and it covered his face once more. He said while blushing, a just cause attracts much support, while an unjust one finds little. Official sovereign must have found me honest, which is why you shared your wisdom. Since we can't sabotage, can the 4 gods leave Yudu and enter Supreme Emperor Heaven or Eternal Peace? The small boat sailed leisurely towards Supreme Emperor Heaven. Elder Messenger of Death placed his lantern on the pole and sat down. Their abilities are too powerful, so it's not easy for them to enter other worlds. However, they will find a way to capture you. Once you cultivate to life and death realm and open the divine treasure, they could enter through there after locating you. Qin Mu shuddered. Entering from his life and death divine treasure? Wouldn't all the divine arts practitioners of life and death realm be in extreme danger? However, Yudu has its own rules. Entering a life and death divine treasure to seize another's life is against Yudu's rules, so they won't be able to do it easily. Elder Messenger of Death had already shared a lot of information, so he felt like he might as well say everything. However, even though their true body can't leave, they can send their disciples to Supreme Emperor Heaven or Eternal Peace, or they could find other people to act as their hands to kill you. Or when Supreme Emperor Heaven gets sacrificed by the devils to connect their world to Eternal Peace, the world barrier will cease to exist. At that time, they'll be able to enter Eternal Peace at leisure. Qin Mu relaxed and said with a smile, it's not easy to kill me, and it's also not easy to attack Supreme Emperor Heaven. It has told through 20,000 years, and now with the backing of Eternal Peace Empire and endless reinforcements, it'll be easy to last another 20,000 years. Elder Messenger of Death sneered at him. You underestimate the devils. It's hard to say how long Supreme Emperor Heaven will last. We're here, you can take off the yellow talisman and return. Qin Mu looked over in a hurry and saw that they were already in the battlefield from before. It seemed that they were exactly from where he had been taken, and so he just jumped out of the boat. Return me my yellow talisman. Elder Messenger of Death shouted. Qin Mu fled with the yellow talisman on his face as though he was a thief that got discovered. Damn it. This video will end here.